even Keith Olbermann was saying similar things, comparing Tucker to a Nazi. He also, for good measure, decided to tweet about me because I said Tucker's going to be better off without Fox, and said something to the effect of, you got fired from Fox and NBC. What would you know about it? So first of all, you misstate the circumstances of my departure from NBC, sir. That's all I'm allowed to say about it. And as for Fox, there were widely reported facts that I was offered $100 million to stay there. But the record's very clear that I left voluntarily because I wanted to raise my family, something you don't know anything about, because no one would marry you and you have no children. You have a cold, lonely life in which you become a bitter, bitter man, something I wouldn't know anything about because my life is joyful and I've managed to raise my own children. And someday, I hope you have that pleasure, but I don't have high hopes it's going to happen.
That's one of the most vicious things I've ever seen. Joining me now, I love her, Megyn Kelly. She is, of course, a journalist, host of the Megyn Kelly Show, which is on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111 every weekday at noon. You can find her at youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. Also, probably need to add to that, soon-to-be convicted murderer. Megyn, that was brutal.
Brother Kelly, it's so good to see you. You know, there wasn't a more deserving man in media. Normally, I'm not that mean, Jesse, but he deserves it. He just deserves it. All he does is spew invective. He set me off a couple months ago because one of the few women who ever agreed to date him was a woman who's at MSNBC right now named Katie Tur. And he goes on his show and just absolutely reveals every secret of his relationship with her, any favor he ever did for her. He just has absolutely no class and, as I demonstrated, no connection with the truth.
Megyn, before we get to some Tucker stuff, which you've been breaking down, I actually want to ask you about Olbermann and maybe media in general. You obviously have a wonderful life, but I'm pretty new to this. I've only been doing this for 5 years, and I can't believe how many basket cases there are in this business. I mean, as a child, I watched Keith Olbermann bring me SportsCenter, and I laughed, and my buddies would go around and we'd laugh about the highlights. And now this guy is a nutball who tries to chirp at me all the time. Was he always a nutball? Is it the media industry that turns people into nutballs?
I do think it attracts more than its fair share of nutballs right from the get-go. And then it adds fuel to the fire. Being on camera, getting a big ego, getting a big paycheck, it can be very corrupting if you're not like a strong person with solid values going into it. I mean, I remember I was at Fox back in the days where O'Reilly and Olbermann were warring every week. It was so nasty between the two of them. And I talked to Bill one time and I said, would you ever go to MSNBC? You know, like if Fox didn't do right by you? And he said, sure, I'd go there. And I said, they'd have to fire Olbermann first. And he said, they'd have to set him on fire. That's our industry.
Yeah, okay, speaking of our industry, you've been breaking down the Tucker stuff a lot, and you probably have a more unique insight on this than really anyone else I can think of besides Tucker himself. What are you talking about?
I just think it's absolutely disgusting how Fox not only fired him, but is clearly determined to destroy him. It's not enough to fire the guy from his number one show that has made Fox millions of dollars. Now they've got to rub his nose in it and make sure his audience knows he needs to be unwatchable. He's a terrible man. He's a pervert. He's, we take your pick. There's a new article every day, which is clearly all being orchestrated by Fox News's PR department. But I can't blame the PR department because she wouldn't be doing that, Irina Briganti, who runs it, without orders from on high to take him down. You know, the main goal right now is to drive a wedge between Tucker and his audience so that they won't leave Fox News. They're hemorrhaging viewers at 8 p.m. Hemorrhaging. Just give you one example. Last Tuesday, when Tucker was there, in the key advertising demo of 25 to 54-year-olds, he pulled, I think it was a 445,000. Might have actually been even higher. This Tuesday, it was 145,000. I mean, the number of viewers who are tuning out, and in the overall, I think they lost 600,000 viewers. So the viewers are angry at 8 p.m. They've taken him away without an explanation, without any fairness to him. Every day they drop another hit piece on him. There's a clear threat that they have some Oppo file they'll be leaking. What more could there be? They hit him every day. For what? What did he do again? Did he cost the company, money? No, he wasn't behind the Dominion settlement. That wasn't a Tucker Carlson problem. That was other talent and executives. He won for them. He put points on the board. He made them relevant. He got them through the Trump era, which was a very tricky time in conservative media. And for that, he gets the boot. And they try to besmirch him in front of his wife, in front of his kids, in front of his audience, because they don't want the audience following him. It's disgusting.
Megyn, this is the kind of thing that scares people because they like truth tellers. It's why your show is so popular. It's why Tucker's show is so popular. People are hungry for that now. And it seems like the gigantic media organizations are purging that. Am I imagining it? Because that's what it seems like. And if that's what it is, what does that mean for the future of people seeking out truth in some way?
There is an element of that. I know I, like everybody else, don't know what the real reason is behind Tucker's firing, but it seems like that's at least an element of it. And if you looked at Tucker's statement last night, where he didn't address any of this head on, that to me seems what he was trying to telegraph. You know, that you get in trouble in this country for telling the truth, but audiences respond, that we're now ruled by essentially one party, and that the elites who are in control will decide what can and cannot be discussed. And if you try to color outside of those lines, they shut you down. I mean, that to me seemed like he was trying to say Fox is part of that one party system. And while they try to masquerade as like, we've got your back, you know, we're going to tell the conservative side of the story, in truth, they're just as elite as anybody else and don't want certain cows being touched. And Tucker touched all the third rails. I mean, there was nothing he wouldn't do. There was no orthodoxy to which he subscribed, which is one of the reasons he was interesting and a threat. So in the era that is now anti-Trump in Murdoch world, which is 100% the case if you read the Journal, if you watch the Post, if you watch Fox, they've turned on Trump. They're over Trump. Where Tucker, I wouldn't say he's pro-Trump, but he's definitely like pro-Trump's voters. He understands who they are and what's important to them, doesn't talk down to them, doesn't dismiss their worldview as just deplorable or not mentionable. He now may have outlived his usefulness. And that too is absolutely disgusting because Trump is probably going to be the GOP nominee. And then what's Fox going to do?
Megyn, in other much smaller news, Don Lemon is so out of a job that Rick Ross is offering him a job at Wingstop. Here he is.
Biggest boss in the game, Ricky Rose, just found out Don Lemon was terminated from CNN. Damn, Don. But guess what? The brothers got your back. We hiring in at Wingstop. And for some reason, I believe you know what you're doing with them lemon pepper wings. So, man, just send over your resume. Well, for 17 years. But I'm going to make sure I get you in front of the right grill, brother. Stay solid.
Okay, one Wingstop is delicious. Two, Don Lemon's a piece of trash, and you've been talking about this for a long time. He's always been a piece of trash, but he's out because he's boring, Megyn. If he had the number one show, he wouldn't be out. He's out because he sucks at television. He was only there because he's black and gay.
He's the worst. And when Jeff Zucker got the boot, his big boss, the first thing Don Lemon did was go on the air that night and remind everybody he's black and gay. He literally went on the air, he was like, I'm black and I'm gay, just in case he forgot. I'm unfireable. And so he's just been, I would chalk it up to douchebaggery. That is the reason he's no longer on the air. Douchebaggery toward women, toward his other colleagues, toward his audience, toward the facts, toward half the country, also known as Republicans. He hates them. And this is a time where CNN is ostensibly trying to rein some more Republicans back on its air as guests and back at home watching CNN. And what is one of his first acts out of the box? It's to tell Vivek Ramaswamy, GOP presidential candidate, he doesn't get to have an opinion on American history because his skin, while brown, is not quite dark as Don's. That Don has a prior claim to all discussions about American history, African American history, because he's black. So Vivek doesn't know anything about it because he's not dark enough. I mean, that just happened on the air right before he was fired. And yet you have people like Al Sharpton out there saying, we need an explanation. This is deeply wrong. Well, how could this possibly happen? Well, open your eyes because it's very clear to all of us how this happened.
Support the First TV today and get instant access to exclusive specials like Who is Ron DeSantis, the history of FBI scandals, and America's worst presidents. Visit thefirsttv.com/support or download the First TV app to become a supporter and start watching today.